Call of Duty isn't supposed to be scary, but every game has one thing that just feels eerie. So today, we're going through every Call of Duty and uncovering the creepiest thing hiding in each one. Let's dive in. First up, we're going old school with COD Finest Hour, with what to this day might be one of the most unsettling things you can stumble upon in a Call of Duty. In the mission Underground Passage, you find yourself traversing this maze-like sewer tunnel underneath the battle above. But if you stray a bit from the main path, you can find some truly horrific stuff. First, if you blow up the walls of a certain section, you'll find a hidden passageway. Now, eventually this leads to this massive, weird, ghostly room, and candles float above this area, dimly lighting the disturbing scene below. The walls are covered in pictures of babies. Just babies, with an empty cradle in the center and a single fully grown man pictured with a pacifier in his mouth on the far end. A sight that only leaves you with more questions than answers, and you're not too sure if you even want to know the answers anyway. But on the opposite side of the creep spectrum, there's another hidden room down here, and that's a little bit less unsettling and even more puzzling. This is the German dance party room, where, as the title suggests, it's a secret room with a bunch of German soldiers just dancing. The room is lit by fire with a DJ on the side playing some super simple beat out of their era-appropriate gramophones. And the soldiers are just going nuts. Visually, this one is a little bit less disturbing, but something about how the DJ's music mixes with the horror of the actual in-game soundtrack and the low-res soldiers just continuing to flail around in all kinds of unnatural ways as if they're in a trance just makes it more creepy than inviting. What's extra weird about this is back when Call of Duty took itself way more seriously. So it's actually a little shocking that something like this would be found in a game so old. Either way, this is a creepy and bizarre way to start off our list. Now let's move over to Call of Duty 4. We have a much more subtle but just as bizarre Easter egg found in this game's multiplayer. For this one, you need to load up into the map Bog, which already is one of the only few nighttime maps setting up the perfect atmosphere. But from there, the Easter egg is incredibly simple. If you make your way to a specific flaming car towards the center and angle your view just right, you can make out a little alien face being projected onto the car's roof from the map's lighting. Now, nobody knows if this is intentional or not, but something about faces appearing in places that they shouldn't is just plain unsettling. And now for World at War. Now, so much of this game keeps you on edge, from its tense campaign levels taking you through war-torn Europe, where the war has turned ordinary homes into haunted battlegrounds, to the quite literal horrific zombies mode where the dead have risen again. But honestly, where we're starting this is right on the main menu screen. Before we even press start, this eerie music is playing with a voice saying something that most of us can't understand. The noises that you hear are actually saying something specific, and that is telling soldiers they're brave and to die with them, when translated from German. Now, we're not done, because I actually want to talk about a multiplayer map here as well. This is Asylum, one of, if not the creepiest maps in Call of Duty history. This takes place in an abandoned asylum, and it's decaying and destroyed. But there's evidence that before the war, things weren't so great for the patients here. If you look around, bloody handprints can be found on the walls and over in the bathroom. You can hear ghostly voices whispering along with other unsettling noises like chains and soft knocking. It's as if the entire place is haunted by echoes of the deceased patients and others killed in the horrific World War. Now we're on to Modern Warfare 2, and you guys know this game. It made headlines back in 2009 for a certain graphic mission, No Russian. Now you're tasked with going undercover and taking part in a massive terrorist attack at a Russian airport. But in the chaos, the devs added a small little Easter egg that actually only adds to the horror of the whole scene. If you approach the bathrooms, you can start to hear a single baby crying inside, seemingly left alone, whose mother or father was presumably killed by the attackers. Now, this is just a heartbreaking detail that just further adds to the weight of what you're asked to do during this mission. Now for Black Ops 1, very similar to World at War, we don't actually even have to launch the game to find our creepiest thing, because it's the main menu again. But unlike an ordinary game's main menu that would just have a couple of options listed to scroll through, BO1 placed you in an interrogation chair, fully able to look around and even stand up and explore the dark and dingy room. This lets you take in the creepy little details of this 60s era CIA black site where you're being held prisoner by an unknown entity, putting you literally in the shoes of Mason before the story even begins. One of my favorite parts though is that when you select zombies from the main menu, the entire room transitions to an even more horrific scene, with red light taking over and zombies replacing the interrogators in the Overwatch window. It's small stuff like this that really set the tone for the game that you were about to play, and with such a good detail that you just don't see anything like it anymore. Now we're gonna head over to Modern Warfare 3 with the DLC map Sanctuary. Now, unlike Asylum from World at War, the majority of this map isn't creepy at all. It's just a Greek monastery taking place during the day. But if you hang around the cemetery for a bit, you may start to hear creepy, ghostly voices of a child and her parents who have seemingly passed on. You can hear the child laughing and saying things like, "Hey, look at me, daddy, look at me," which, if you played the MW3 campaign, you may recognize this as some of the final words of the Davis family, who unfortunately are killed in England around the start of the full-scale invasion of Europe, aka the saddest scene in the game. All right, so now on to Black Ops 2, where we're actually gonna head over to zombies. Now, zombies can already be pretty eerie, especially back in the first few games, and Mob of the Dead, which had you play as 4 mobsters trapped in a zombified version of Alcatraz, was already one of the creepiest things that Treyarch had ever put out. But the thing we want to highlight was actually a small side Easter egg, and it's another incredibly simple one. So if you brought a scoped weapon up to the roof and zoomed in on a specific point in the distance, Treyarch would jump scare you with a picture of a creepy zombie's face and scream. Now later, Treyarch would add these little jump scares to a few other maps throughout the years, but just the fact that no one expected this one at the time definitely makes it the creepiest of the bunch. So COD Ghosts is a weird one. As a part of the game's DLC, Ghosts multiplayer had some really out there maps, ranging from excavation sites containing an alien weapon to an entire map based around crossovers like the Predator and even Michael Myers. Now the latter of which would also be in the running for the game's creepiest thing, with its dark and unsettling map, Fog, taken straight out of a horror movie. But within the DLC, there's another map just as creepy, and somehow even weirder. This is Mutiny, a map taking players to a remote Caribbean island harboring an old abandoned pirate ship. And if the dark and decrepit vibe from this map itself wasn't already scary enough, then wait until I tell you, if you completed your field orders on this map, you had the chance of earning a ghostly crew kill streak, which spawned 2 ghosts to escort the player throughout the map, killing whoever stands in their way. So to be fair, this one's a lot less disturbing than others on the list and more leans into the fun aspect of Ghosts, but it's still pretty creepy when you think about it. And now for another creepy map. We're gonna make our way over to Advanced Warfare with the map Sideshow, which takes place at an abandoned hotel on the side of the road. I mean, that's kind of normal, right? Well, this hotel happens to be clown themed. Yeah. Every square inch of this place is covered from floor to ceiling in clown-themed props and artwork. Something that you may think is more weird than scary if you're a normal, well-adjusted person. But for those of us who have seen movies like It, this might be the most unsettling so far. And as weird as the map is, what's even weirder is that it's actually based on a real-life clown motel located in Nevada, which, if you really wanted to, they take reservations for only about $120 a night. Black Ops 3 is up next, and we have one more creepy map for now. This is Citadel, a later stage DLC map whose description reads, an ancient towering castle, once a seat of power, now sits broken and abandoned. The last trespassers didn't make it out alive. Maybe you'll have a better shot. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a medieval castle with all kinds of strange, fantastical elements to it. But one of the weirdest are these trees with working, moving faces on them that you can actually hear whisper to you if you get close. Now, I'm not sure what the lore is here, if there even is any, but this map is definitely one of the strangest Call of Duty has ever released. Now we're on to COD World War II, and this game's take on the historic war was a lot more Hollywood and action first compared to World at War's creepy vibes. But there is one part of the game where they absolutely nailed the horror feeling, and that was in their zombies mode. This was back during the era where every studio would take turns making their own version of zombies each year, instead of Treyarch just doing it all themselves. And while Infinity Ward went back with a more lighthearted approach back in Infinite Warfare, Sledgehammer decided to go in the exact opposite direction for World War II. This version of zombies is by far the darkest. Its first map was this dimly lit gore fest that felt like something out of an actual horror franchise rather than just Call of Duty, which makes sense given that the last AAA franchise Sledgehammer worked on before becoming a major COD studio was Dead Space. And clearly they put their past expertise to good use here to deliver a new take on the mode that may not have been everyone's favorite, but was undeniably the most horrific the series has ever seen. Now, Nuketown has had a ton of different mannequin-based Easter eggs over the years, but as far as creepy ones go, none come close to this one from BO4's Alpha Omega. You see, if you melee every mannequin's head off, it will spawn an additional one who will hunt you, but only when you aren't looking. Now, thankfully though, he'll reward you with a power-up eventually if you lead him to the right spot. But that's not all, because there's actually a second version to this Easter egg where if you shoot all the heads off instead of meleeing them, a special mannequin only round will start, and dozens of these things will rush at you in true horror fashion. Now, I know this is very similar to the Black Ops 3 multiplayer version, but this version, while playing zombies, just feels a bit more creepier. And that brings us to Modern Warfare 2019, which rebooted the franchise into this more grounded and gritty universe, a universe that didn't shy away from the horrors of war over in the campaign. But over in the multiplayer, some maps took the horror element a step further. Throughout this game's live seasons, they would add fun little Easter eggs on a handful of maps, like one that opens a bunker containing a bunch of teddy bears going over war plans. But one of the other Easter eggs is over on the map Livestock, where shooting various stuffed animals in that area will start a satanic ritual in the barn with 4 demonic goats creepily stepping toward the pentagram in the middle, causing your screen to turn red and eventually kill you. Now for Black Ops Cold War. This creepy moment brings us near the end of the campaign, where the playable character Bell finally learns the truth about who he is. And you play through this trippy dreamlike mission where nothing is as it seems. As you progress through what starts a simple Vietnam mission, reality starts to break. Things aren't where they're supposed to be. And if you choose to go against the instructions that Adler is telling you in your ear, you can wander onto some really crazy stuff, including a dark cave where zombies will appear out of nowhere and kill you. Black Ops is known for these reality bending missions, but this one is definitely the creepiest, at least so far. Now we move on to the new Modern Warfare 3, which was known for some crazy maps and map variants, releasing several that took classic maps and added different horror-based spins on them. There was Airborne, which put Terminal in the middle of some kind of toxic infestation. Ghost Ship moved shipment into a farm in the middle of a satanic ritual again, and Mad Cow flooded the map Meat with black water and pools of blood. But the creepiest map in the game wasn't one of those variants. It was a completely original one called Drive-Thru. Kind of like a spiritual successor to AW Sideshow, Drive-Thru takes place at a fast food restaurant that during any ordinary day might not seem so bad, but at night, it's like something out of a horror movie. But if you could somehow look past the dingy store itself with the creepy Funny the Clown mascot, who seems to always be watching, what might give you pause is the surrounding areas being filled with dead bodies, bloodstains, and shallow, unmarked graves. In the shed out back, you can find subtle hints to a serial killer perhaps lurking in the shadows the entire time you're playing, just waiting for the opportunity to strike. But the real horror of it comes from all the little context clues you can find if you slow down for a second to read signs and posters implying that the meat in the burgers the restaurant is serving may not exactly be beef. Black Ops 6 brings us back to the campaign with this game's weird and trippy level taking place about halfway through, titled Emergence. In-game, your character gets separated from the rest and exposed to a dangerous chemical known as the Cradle, which causes him to hallucinate zombies and other supernatural entities coming to get him. Now, eventually, by the end of the mission, you're pretty much just playing a round of zombies, complete with a little mini boss fight, but at the beginning, the pace is slow. In fact, the entire first sequence when you first get infected is something straight out of a horror game where you're slowly being descended upon by mannequins, creating an interesting but also really creepy and weird mission all around. And like a lot of what we've been talking about on this list, it's something you never would have expected out of a Call of Duty game. And now for Black Ops 7, and we're actually going with something completely different. This isn't a map or a mission or even an Easter egg. Instead, this is a piece of equipment, the psych grenade. And it's pretty simple. Throw it and it emits a gas that, like the Cradle, makes you hallucinate in the middle of the match. Now, it's not quite as intense as that in the campaign mission we mentioned, but it does cause a bunch of fake enemies to pop up all around you. Your minimap goes wild and you'll hear screams and whispers in your ears for a few seconds before it fades away. And there you have it, folks. That is the creepiest thing in every Call of Duty. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe if you're new. If you want to watch another video, go click over there. We'll see you in the next one.